I figured it was time to give a little different landscape for a change. A little simple representation, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Couple of dirt roads, one road forking into two. Which way do we go? To the left, to the right? Well, I'm not going to sit here and pontificate what's right and what's wrong. You're going to have to do that yourselves. Your conscience has to be your guide, that spirit of truth that is put into every man and woman. It's up to us whether or not we listen to it. We can do what they do in the Bohemian Grove and cast our conscience aside and say we don't need to listen to it because the ends justifies the means. Cremate our care, our conscience. Slaughter the innocent, including our own innocence. Which way are we going to go? I'm not going to choose for you. I can't do that. But I can ask you to apply the spirit of truth, to listen to your conscience, to know that you do not want to do to another which you would not want done to you. Goes back to what I said the other day. We all want assistance in life in one way or another, and I don't mean public assistance, of course. I mean, we want to be successful, we want to do well. But we don't want to do it at the expense of another. And some would say, well, that's not what this world is. This is about the big fish eating the little fish. Oh, I wouldn't disagree with you. But are you going to be able to overcome that base lack of consciousness, lack of conscience? No greater love hath a man than this. Why do I bring that up? Faith, hope, and charity. But faith can falter, and I think we've all experienced that because there are some things that are out of our control, out of our reach. Hope can fail, and I'm sure you've all experienced that in one form or another. Maybe as simple as you were hoping you'd go to a movie this afternoon, and it turns out you cannot. So hope can be dashed as well. Again, it has things that are outside of our control. Well, not that there is something wrong with faith and hope. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. Something tangible in the end is what it is. But, as you could see from the experiences of your life, faith and hope can falter. Which leaves us with charity. Charity will always succeed. Why? Because it is in our control to love. We know when we give love what our intention is. When we care for another. When we care for what's right. And that's a form of charity too, once you come to know what it is. The right. But you see it in your own heart, and it never does fail, because if you're doing it for the wrong reason, you know it immediately. But even when you do it for the wrong reason, charity has a way of coming back on you in a positive way. So which way are we going, ladies and gentlemen? And that's what the balance of this video is going to be about. We're at that point, not just as a nation, but as a world, as an earth, where we need to use all of our mind, all of our spirit, and all of our body to get through what's coming. Yes, plugged into that great eternal, the King of the universe, obviously. You know, I've often talked about what the name Jesus Christ really means. In the Hebrew, it's Yehoshua HaMashiach. And there are all kinds of disagreements over whether this was a real person or not, whether or not it came down from the Sumerians. You're missing the point. The point is, are you going to take that name upon yourself? Be a savior and anointed with light, rather than being a destroyer and a preacher of darkness. Take that name upon you, even if you do not believe in that entity, that man that walked the earth 2,000 years ago, or that you might say is simply nothing more than another legend that is so common in all of the other cultures in the world, of a man-god, or a man who follows the truth and is able to approach God. Or some of you believe that it is God, however you want to look at it. The fact that that story exists in the Old and New Testaments as it expands out and is revealed doesn't detract from its truth simply because other cultures talk about the same thing. If you all know about Joseph Campbell, and he talked about archetypes, certain types of images and understandings are ingrained in all of us. And those archetypes, those icons, are there for a reason. Because one day they will be manifest. If nowhere else, then in you. Again, you can be a savior, anointed with light and understanding, or you can be a destroyer, giving into the darkness. It's your choice, and it's here before you today. You know, I could talk about so many things. So much is happening. Oligarchs are trying to take over the world, and I realize that secular governments, political subdivisions, haven't done a real good job, especially not in the last 200 years. But that one that came into existence in 1776 with really a better definition of what the Magna Carta was trying to say, and all of those who had stood for liberty before, including the greatest of liberators, the one who liberates both body and spirit. Because that's another name of what Jesus Christ means. Yehoshua HaMashiach means liberator, not just in the spirit world, but here as well. The greatest of liberators. And in 1776, they incorporated some of his ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I've said that before. He stated it as, I would that you would have life and that more abundantly, and that you find the truth, because the truth will make you free. And then James talked about the perfect law of liberty, and I've talked about that many times. But wickedness is in high places. It's a spiritual battle, because we're talking about conscience now, ladies and gentlemen. That is on the spirit side. You know, back in the medieval days, the church and the scientists made an agreement. The science would stay in the physical world, and the church would be in the part of the conscience. Well, now, you've seen what they've done to the churches, made them subservient to the government, the physical. So the contract there was broken. I'm not sure it should have ever been made in the first place. But regardless of what they do, it's our responsibility, indeed our privilege, and our right, maybe even a duty, to meld our spirits and our bodies to make our soul. To meld that conscience with the reality of the physical world. The leaders don't feel that necessity. These oligarchs, anybody from Soros to the Rothschilds to the Rockefellers, we could name all kinds of them. And they're really on the lower rungs of the ladder of this thing. series is starting to come up a little bit. I cannot enumerate everything that's happening here. You must have eyes to see and ears to hear and a conscience that can help you to make the proper judgment. But I will mention these few things that are coming right now. Yes, pardon me for that, but I know that when I do these recordings outside, a lot of people say I can't hear anything because of the sound, you know, the noise of the wind and all that. But I have to use what I have available to me. So I'm talking about all these crazy things that are going on, and that you must. I want you to concentrate on the good, but you've got to understand the evil so that you know what the good is. You know, you taste the bitter so you know the sweet. Remember I told you that they want to start a war. Well, just in the last couple of days, the United States said that they are reserving right now their right to first strike nuclear capability against the Russians. I almost said the Soviet Union because that's the school that I came from. I can't believe that we have done so much to bring down the barriers in this world with all of our communications and our travel and our understanding, and these leadership people are doing everything they can to destroy that bond that has been going on in humanity for the last little while, especially in Europe. But that's what they want. So we're going into some really bad areas here. Remember I said U.S. will probably be burned in a day. Karl Rove and I forget the guy who was in the Rand Corporation were talking about that we're an empire and we're going to act like it. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a Christian, God-fearing nation that builds liberty for our own people first and protects us, and let that example shine to the world, not force it on others, because then it'll be misused as they are now, to build empire, to start wars in places, to overthrow legitimate governments. And it's all for gain, for ill-gotten gain, greed, not for liberation, not for to restore freedom, but to institute new forms of slavery based on economics, and eventually controlling your very thoughts. That's where they're going. Well, I digress a little bit. Remember I was talking a little bit about this situation with Russia and how we have really done wrong here, and this is going to turn on us. Russia has never stood still when foreign invaders have come in. Nobody's ever succeeded in defeating them, even if you think ICBMs can do it, or tactical nukes. This is not going to go well in Washington, D.C. with this hubris, especially when the Russians are really not worse than the people that run D.C. Most of the wars in the world, I mean, we have special forces people, as Dr. Pachinik said, all over the world. What are we doing that for? And now they're here on American soil, supposedly for an exercise, Jade Helm. But as Patrick Henry said, they're here for us. You're not fooling us. You're not supposed to be doing this stuff. You have military installations. You're not supposed to have a standing military in and amongst the citizens, in amongst the people. That was the whole idea, not to have that. Part of the Constitution. So we had a leak about the Jade Helm situation from somebody on the inside. And look, they deny so much of it. And yet, all of these exercises, all these things are going on everywhere. I know for a fact, as I said in one of the videos, they are surveilling people. They are doing on-the-ground recon to check their data right now. Yeah, they might know that a war is going to start. But that's my point. They've manufactured everything so they could come to this point where they could put the troops out here. That's the point. Not that they're really interested in protecting us. Tommy Franks himself said what? Well, next time there's a large terror attack, the military is going to take over. Is that what we want? I submit that it isn't. You never get your freedom back.